Welcome to episode 7 of the Justin Johnston Show. I'm Justin Johnston. I'm a commercial real estate broker. I've leased, sold commercial, industrial, office properties for the last 28 years in Utah County and Salt Lake, here in the state of Utah. This is Blake Moore. He's my producer and content provider and editor for all the things that we're doing here. He's doing a great job, and really thankful for him and what you're pulling together for us on this. And anybody that knows me knows I kind of have a passion about manufacturing, right? Yeah. We lost so many jobs. We lost a big part of the industry over the last 30 plus years. And we've watched, well, everything's changed. And I would say many things are for the better. It's not all gloom and doom. I don't say that, but I think that if there's anything that we did find out in this pandemic, the pandemic and the supply chain, is that we are very reliant on other countries. There's also a phenomena going on that I think right now is that not everybody wants to be a programmer. Not everybody wants to work in a high-tech field of actually, thought and code and content that way. A lot of people want to work on some really cool, the great thing about technology that's advanced is that there's some really, really cool manufacturing type jobs that are out there, right? Not just jobs, industries. And that cues up for, if we went back at the beginning, I guess it wasn't necessarily the beginning of the pandemic, Micron owned a facility in Lehi.
What is Micron?
Micron was a chip manufacturer.
Oh, okay.
And that they were the ones that acquired the ground. They've got hundreds and hundreds of acres up right there at the south side, what would be Utah County, of the point of the mountain. Now it's been called Silicon Slopes area. And even though a lot of the industry, the companies and the industry is Silicon Slopes, and that's why they named it that, Micron, and they actually had a little joint venture with I Am Flash, which was dang, you have to edit that right, because I don't who's the huge Intel. So I don't know if you go. They did a joint venture with Intel. They called it I Am Flash. It was for some of that flash technology that they were doing. They've gone back, and anyway, it was October 2021, year and a half ago. Texas Instruments bought the facility. It's about 2 million square feet right now, 1,100 employees, high-paying jobs, and there was, hey, in the next 5-10 years, they're going to modify what they were doing right out there. Well, they had aggressive plans, and we found out 2 days ago, Governor Cox met with the execs at Texas Instruments, and they have been working on this for a while. Obviously, it was probably in the works, maybe even from the very beginning of the acquisition of the property up there. But they're going to expand, probably build another 1 million square feet, 800 jobs. The average pay of each job is $110,000. It's a coup. It's a huge opportunity, bro. I don't know how much the chip bill came, which was about a year ago now. They were voting in 2022, February, March. It seems like, without being accurate on that, it was something where they allocated so many millions of dollars and so many hundreds of millions of dollars to either block grant for people trying to do things in the U.S., right, and expand it. And obviously, if this was in the works, that was before anything. Obviously, Texas Instruments was looking at this and saying, hey, we've got a problem. And we would have found that problem out before a year ago, right, with the bill. They bought this a year and a half ago, and we were well into the pandemic, almost 2 years at that time when they acquired this. So we knew the problems, I guess, on that overall. So it was really exciting. So I think, this idea of expansion, what we have here in the state, I mean, let me see. They were talking about here.
Well, so the company that is coming here, so I didn't read too much in depth in the article, but they make microchips? Is that what the whole thing is?
Yeah, and it's the chip. So the ones that they're doing now is for certain segments of the industry that Micron was doing for, Texas Instruments doing them, but it's the stuff that they're making is all where from automobile and electronics that are in everything right now, the shortage that we've had, you know, so all those Ford vehicles sitting out there in the field, you know, waiting for the chips to be installed, is my understanding is that's some of the chips that they'll be doing for the high-end processing that, I don't know, whether they say there's hundreds of chips that go into a gasoline vehicle.
Yeah.
These the chips.
Well, I
and
saw
then there's
something that's-
thousands of chips
yeah.
that go into an electric vehicle.
Yeah,
right, to
exactly.
make them process right. That's one of the quotes I think from there is at the end of the day, they had so I mean it's not like sometimes people think that there's the chip for the car. It's processing everything. No, there's a chip for everything showing the gauge on how much fuel you have left, how much energy you need to charge it, your brakes, everything, right? I mean, so they're
Well, and even just for like your screen that's right there, and for the probably, I don't know this for sure, but even like the seat adjustments, I mean, probably everything.
yeah. I mean, they say that the diagnostics now is they plug the thing in and like, hey, here's the problem. Now there might be something bigger than that mechanically that's going on, but there's a failure somewhere because they can see what chip is not is maybe had a failure of some kind or whatever. But at the end of the day, your car doesn't run without it, and it's pretty amazing. And our little electronics, I mean, all the chips here, I mean, I don't know, like I say, I don't want to pretend to understand how they're all used, except for we know that we were impacted big time. Yeah. And, here I've been, you and I have had that discussion off camera many times about chip manufacture. There was some expansion down in Arizona. I was like, man, why couldn't we track that right now, Yeah. And Governor Cox was working on that with Texas Instrument, who had already made a significant investment. So I'm really excited about that because, well, it's happening around the country. There's another, they've invested in something that was just outside of Austin. I think Sony actually has a plant down there, which of course is Japanese owned, and it's nothing against China. Actually, China's not manufacturing. Most of them are Taiwan, which some people are saying that's why China wants to invade Taiwan. Without all the geopolitical stuff at play, we just know that we've been affected in a huge way. Who designed those chips? Who invented them in the first place was America, and I think that we're learning that shipping things out, at the end of the day, in the long run, you don't save that much money. Yeah. Right? That doesn't mean that we couldn't use them or that they couldn't manufacture. We have a conglomerate of people working together in different countries that maybe can do things better, but we know we can manufacture them well, and the technology is what, it's the current technology, but also the future technology that's going to be changing, right? And so if we got the plants that we can manufacture them, I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to do well. And then the crazy part is they're dumping in this new facility. I say dumping, that's probably not the so they acquired this the first one back in October for like, I want to say $1.5 billion is what they paid.
Yeah, I think I saw that number.
1.5 billion. That's what they made the acquisition for of the Micron Technology Lehigh plant, and so, which I think was a value. It was a pretty good value, but at the same time, price per square foot, I don't know. I mean, they separated the land out and just the building. So I think for the building property, it was a high rate per square foot, but overall for what they're looking to do, coming back there. Now, what they're looking to dump into and into this project is $2.4 billion in wages, $111 million new state tax revenue for the last 20 years. Now, I don't want to misquote some of these numbers, but I remember in 08 when the with the 08 meltdown happened, the Utah has the Spy Center. That's not the technical term, but everybody refers to it as the Spy Center out there. Point of the mountain, across the river, and next to Camp Williams there.
Oh, yeah.
Is it Camp Williams? The Army camp.
The one right off of Redwood.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. So it's right across the street there, and it's the one that tracks all the stuff. It was a major investment. I think at the time I was told it was 3.5 or 2.5, 3 billion that was spent, which I personally believe, even at that time, I felt like it was like the one thing that actually infused money into Utah. Everybody was saying, oh, we did such a great job hedging against that market. We recovered faster. Well, We did, as a state, we were managing things quite well, but, when you get $3 billion dumped in your backyard right at the time that came, it was a huge deal. I think it helped us transition faster, right? Because there was money being dumped into here, into this market, and of course then some of the other jobs that were coming with that, other people that wanted to locate there. So really interesting.
So do you know exactly where this is going to be located?
Yeah, it's right next to their current facility.
Which is that like by the Adobe Center?
No,
area,
well, it's further in. So if you're, if you come up that road, is it the Alpine Highway or the Highland Highway? I don't know which one. One goes north, one goes west. But you get off 215 Thanksgiving Point in Lehigh. You go straight east. You go past Adobe. You go past the other Oracle. And you keep going.
Yeah.
Once you get up on the flat area, if you look back up to the north, there's 2 million square feet there. It's quite a ways off the road. So if you know where it's at, you look up there, you see it. If you didn't know that it's not like they've got a big billboard saying Texas Instruments. I actually think they did put a new entry down off the road. But they've got hundreds of acres in there that they're going to build this other new facility.
Okay.
So it's right next to that, right there.
So what do you think that's going to do for real estate in this area?
I mean, well, we're getting 800 new jobs.
Yeah.
And they're not delaying. They actually plan to start construction this summer. Okay. So, I mean, they're really aggressive. There was definitely, that's why I think that they had, when they acquired the plant, I think they were already down the road because they got some additional tax increment financing, which Utah has been very good at using that to attract some of these larger companies, to come out here. They give them, hey, you don't have to pay property taxes. You don't have to pay some of the taxes for your employees on a state level for 20 years, but then when you do start to pay them back, right, then that's what they would have been paying anyway. Yeah. They don't have to pay it. It saved them. I mean, in some ways, it's not as much money, as you would think at the end of the day, but it is. Obviously, it's for the budget and for the state of Utah, but they know that if they can work that type of a deal out to get Texas Instruments here and they're building chips, the average it's pretty hard to get an average pay job, $110,000.
Yeah.
I don't know of another industry. I mean, it's got to be something like that, right? Where you say 800 jobs. It's it's not like, hey, we got 500 jobs from Amazon. Not to bash them, but if they build a facility out there and the average wage is $16 an hour.
Yeah, I mean that's not going to be necessarily even homeowners that are taking those jobs.
Yeah,
right.
It's secondary incomes and
or 18-year-olds.
Yeah. They don't have a home. They're just, hey, I can work there and I get some extra spending money and whatever. They're maybe going to school. My daughter did work there for a little bit, and she's like, man, I can't believe it. It's a real cross. There's a lot of old guys that are even retired. They just want to fill their time up. Their spouse passed on. So that's the type of job, right? And that has a place. And we're all benefiting from Amazon as it's delivered to our house, everything that's every day. And so, I mean, that's it's just a different move. See, I think personally, and the location of this existing facility that they're going to build onto, right? It's crazy. I mean, the infrastructure is there. They're ready to go. They actually worked out some issues with, I guess in the process of doing, making the silicon chips, it takes quite a bit of water, but they've already perfected that with what they're doing right now with recycling a lot of the water to cool it down, I think, and things like that it takes. But at the, anyway, the process is there. And they're starting this summer. So,
do you think it's going to inflate housing prices?
I don't know about inflate, but it's going to keep things moving. I think the inflation's coming because developers and people have been scared, and they've slowed down construction on new homes and projects. I mean,
and do you think we're not going to have enough?
I think we're going to be short.
Yeah,
that's the problem, right? It's like if things leveled out and rates were going to slow down this inflation, well, okay, if it does, we hope that it does that. We can't have inflation keep going where it's at. So we hope that is what happens, but it slowed down developers and banks saying, well, hey, rates are higher. Oh, it's a little more different. We're nervous about making these type of loans, and so everybody backs off. And, of course, you can't buy as much home when rates are higher. Yeah. So you got, but eventually, hey, if you got to buy a home and that's what you want to do, and there's not as many being built right now.
Well, and there's not even, because I've been looking for houses for my sister, obviously, and there's just not that much on the market that I'm looking at. for what their price range is in like the upper 500,000s, low 600,000s, there's really not that much, especially if you're looking for in this area of Saratoga, Lehigh area. There's really not many new builds, which I thought there would be quite a bit more because they're wanting like a quick move in or just anything after like 2018. And I was going through and I'm like, there's maybe like 15 homes that are in this area. And if you go past the point of the mountain, it drops off to like 3. There's like, yeah, like Draper, Harriman, Riverton, South Jordan area. There's like 3 that fit that price range. Like you can get the townhomes, which there's plenty of, but I mean,
There is quite a few townhomes and stuff there.
yeah, there's quite a few townhomes, but single family that are, I mean, to get a single family here, it is usually above 500,000 now. But I just thought, I was like, man, if there's really 800 new jobs opening, there's going to be a shortage in this area.
Well, and so, if I don't know the latest statistics, and I don't know if it's exact, right? I mean, it's always moving a little bit. But for every manufacturing job, and this is traditional manufacturing, which when I say that, traditional manufacturing, it takes some type of specialized education, right? I mean, there's specialized learning, somebody that has, you can't just open a machinist shop and be building things for specific clients without guys that have been working around those tools and the process to get it out the door. It takes a special trade to be able to do that. So you've got this, and now we're talking a high-end special trade with, this is just Texas Instrument, 800 jobs, high-paying jobs. It's supposed to create another 4. For every 1 job, there's 4 other jobs created.
So what, 3,200 jobs?
Yeah, that's what it would be. I mean, that's if you said, I mean, if you took the statistics and say, you're bringing in this job, right? Well, these people all got to buy a home. They're 800 people plus their families, right? So you start adding that up. I guess they've got $110,000 as their average income. They're buying. There's going to be more convenience stores, more restaurants. So for every, not necessarily high-paying jobs, but a good manufacturing job will bring in 4 additional jobs created. So so it's a big deal. This is a really, really big deal for Utah. That's why we're talking about it. But I mean, there's other places. America is making that transition, right? Yeah. And if you say that the pandemic started 3 years ago, right? We figured out, all the problems we had. I mean, it's been a short time. We're already turning, and this plant's going to be, again, Micron was a great company, but Texas Instruments obviously in a position that they wanted to expand, right? Yeah. Micron's had that land up there forever, and they've added some more things onto it, and the transition's now, and it's coming in, and they're making I mean, I've had friends that have worked up there. It's always been a good job. I've never known anybody that didn't have a job at Micron or IM Flash when they were doing that joint venture with Intel, that it wasn't a great job. I mean, they were living in great areas, and they were sending their kids to all the private schools and doing all that type of thing. So it's a great location, and it's right there. Again, Silicon Slopes. They're maybe the only actual company producing something in silicon, right? But they all do support, and that's what the whole point of this is. So really exciting.
Do you think they're going to be building just like housing and stuff past, like a lot more east of the freeway, like past Alpine and stuff? Is there going to need to be new developments out past there?
You know what? A lot of that's what they deem undevelopable because of the grade and slope. But, maybe I know that there's some flat areas up on the top there. In fact, a lot of it is deemed part of Draper City.
Really? Oh, yeah, because
it's Draper City in Utah County, which is very interesting. It's in the Utah County, and you go in there, and I think Draper, I mean, it's it's a whole other city technically, but they've annexed it as part of their stuff, right?
Well, it's like up by Suncrest is still Draper, isn't it?
Yeah, it could be. It could be. It kind of wraps around there. But if you went all the way up to Alpine, and those that are local and know what we're talking about on this, it's a significant area. There's some nice flat areas. I've driven up in there on some side-by-sides and looked at some land that a client of mine had. I think they're just holding on to it right now, but their goal was to never build. In fact, I think they were trying to put some of it into a conservation easement that could never be built upon, you know?
Yeah.
I think you could build like 10 homes on several thousands of acres, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
some wealthy people own that. But the point is, wow, where are we going to build, right? I mean, water's an issue. We got the Great Salt Lake that's historic lows. We're having a great year with water right now, but you know, out there in Eagle Mountain, supposedly that's going to stop the growth before, you know, the need for the land out there. I don't know all the ins and outs of that, but you hear things that are eventually we're going to slow because of that. I think we'll come up with new solutions to those problems, you know, as far as that, because people are coming here.
Yeah.
And again, what is it? It's a byproduct. It's not that Utah's a great place to live. The state has managed things very well. And
Well, I think it's still the number one economy growing.
yeah. Well, and that was the other thing. What did we talk about? The two, we had the 10 best places with real estate, but then right after that, they came out. Austin was number one. Provo, Boomtown. Was it the Boomtown article that we had? We're going to actually do a show on that as well, but it's Boomtown, if you take economic growth, population growth, Provo was number 2, Austin was number 1.
So when they say Provo, does that basically just mean Utah County area? Because that's what I'm wondering.
I'm wondering if it could be that to the Provo MSA,
Yeah.
right? Because I think that Austin has their own metro statistic,
Yeah.
you know, zone, and so that it could mean that because it is the Provo MSA. They used to call it Provo Orem MSA, which is kind of interesting, but it's just the Provo MSA right now, to my understanding. But it probably is that. That's my thought. But though Provo's had quite a bit of growth too.
Yeah.
I mean, so there has been. It probably would be very close, right? If you took percentages, it's probably pretty close. But historically, and I don't see it changing with what is announced here, North County, in Utah County, south, right there, what the point of the mountain, Silicon Slopes, is a hot area. There's still quite a bit of land up there. Of course, that's where the prison was located. On the Salt Lake side of that, Bluffdale. But there's a lot of land to develop. They've now moved the facility. They're starting to do some demolition and things like that there. So there's a lot that's going to happen there. I see it being the most expensive real estate probably in the state for the next while. Values have increased significantly when you go further south, which they actually sat. What I thought was like, it didn't make any sense because it's like, are you saying a 15-minute drive is double the price? You know, and it was like that for several years. It was weird. I mean, the land prices, industrial land, it's not quite that now, but now there's less land up there, right? So it is kind of what is available if you can do land, if you want to buy a home. There used to be a very easy divider line between Lehigh and Saratoga. Now you're driving out there, it's like, I don't know.
I live right on the border.
Are you right there?
Well,
I know close to where you're at.
Yeah, sometimes when you put in the address, it's under Lehigh. Sometimes it's Saratoga.
Oh, really?
Because it's literally right. Like I think our street that we live on is
The divider?
The divider. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
So-
that's crazy.
Yeah. There's not. Yeah. There's no.
And I don't know where you, yeah, see, I mean, where it's the street, right?
Yeah.
And you're not 100% sure if that's maybe where it's at, you know, because it was changed. Everything's changed
Oh
dramatically.
yeah, it's crazy. Well, and so I'm wondering, so if you were looking to, if you're a real estate investor and you hear this and you know Utah's going to be a big grower over the next few years with this coming up, what ways would you say is like a good way to invest with this huge opportunity coming?
I think that it's not like you can't miss, right? Ground is expensive. Development costs are high. Material, what people can spend. I mean, you have to be able to have people afford the products. That's housing. You got to have rents match up on the back end with industrial property, right? I think what I see happen right now, and it's really any developer, small, large, everything in between, there is a great opportunity for somebody that is thoughtful, that is really looking at the housing market. That's what you're doing, multifamily. You see there's a lot of townhomes in my mind. I don't know for sure. If you're saying there's more townhomes, I mean, maybe that's just where the product is in the marketplace, but my gut's telling me that maybe the townhomes are that are out there on the market right now not as nice with the amenities, or there would be the same shortage there. They're obviously trying to push the price up to what they think they can get because the home market's that much more.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have those inequalities or differences, right, that a developer can make more money on that product. So my thought is every type of development right now, right? Retail's recovered. We have the Provo Town Center Mall that is now, it was sold. I have a different owner that's a developer-minded investment company. Brixton Capital, I think if they go by that, Brixton something, it's an arm. They've got several different companies, but at the end of the day, they're acquiring the out pads. They're putting multifamily up around there that they think that's going to work best with the mall. They're converted the old Dillard's to a Target.
Yeah.
Big, beautiful Target. I think they're only taking 1.5 of the floors, it was a main level, part of the downstairs. I'm not sure. The square footage, my understanding, is about that. So people that you can't just throw up in industrial buildings as much. I think the cities are more particular of what they want. And so I think if you can put a good project together, whatever it is right now, I just foresee that being something that's going to continue to boom here in Utah, within reason, right? You can't overpay on the ground, you can't overpay for the rest of it. It's got to work. But there's opportunity that could be thwarted. But I think it is there. I just can't see it changing unless something dramatic happens. You know. And it's no need to talk about that. We know that that's the case.
Yeah.
But we've had some dramatic things happen.
Yeah.
And the truth is, we're still a small country in many ways. We have huge economic growth. We're still growing, right? So Italy, China, they went negative, right?
Yeah.
Supposedly, Italy is like, here in the next several years, it's kind of like, dude, you know what I mean? So I've thought to myself, well, maybe now's a good time to go buy some stuff in Italy, I don't know for sure on that. I don't know enough about the market there, but it's very interesting. China has, and they say that it's just going to continue to expand unless they bring a lot of females into there, to start families and growing. It is a matter of numbers, right? So we're still growing.
Yeah.
And we have, maybe not at the rate that we would like for an economy, but at the end of the day, there is a shortage. We had all the people moved in Utah, not just Utah, but around the country, right?
Yeah.
It is a shortage. And I think 2022 was a record year for multifamily product.
Yeah.
And that is apartments. But, a lot of times you look at it, it is townhomes that are sold, condos that are sold. I don't know how much of that is calculated into the multifamily market that they had a record year of last year of product. And there's a lot of starts that are still there, but, everything I hear is like, well, maybe it won't be the increases we've had, right?
Yeah.
But they're all spoken for, right? So it's like, okay, well, we don't want it to go up 7 to 12% a year. That's not good. It's great for a landlord that's sitting on a lot of product that their wealth just went, crazy with that. But for the most part, something that's ongoing is going, it's all spoken for, really.
Yeah.
And the only areas I see that are, and they still seem to continue to kind of grow to some degree is, some of the larger cities where people have been leaving because of the crime and some of the things that have happened through this pandemic. But I think, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in those areas. My gut tells me they're all in really good locations, right? There was a reason that they grew so much in the past. Every place has growing pains, and sometimes it's maybe when it's fully maxed out, and that's why people are probably leaving. There's not the same opportunity there was. There's a lot of opportunity around. So I don't know. That was a long answer to what you asked for. The question is growth. I just see, at least everything I read across, there are going to be pockets that maybe aren't doing well. But as far as the entire country, it looks like there'll be some more boomtown areas that have been similar to what they've been in the past. I think for areas that are not in the traditional large city or metropolitan areas around that, and obviously Salt Lake, Provo, Utah County, Texas, some of these cities they're just expanding. It's crazy.
Well, and what's funny is that at the end of last year, beginning of this year, there was all that talk about a recession. And I think it's going the complete opposite. Even like with the stock market, I don't know if you keep up with the stock market very much, but I mean, I can check right now, but I look at it. I would say I keep an eye on it about every day. But I mean, yeah, since the turn of the year, it's up a pretty decent amount, like 9% already for the year. The just S&P 500, and I just haven't seen any signs of recession, which is just funny because it was like the talk of everything.
Well, so we've had a couple shows and we talked about this.
Yeah.
When they were doing the layoffs at Google, Microsoft, HP, and there was others, but those are the big ones that announced. And they all announced it, and it was like, when they announced, we had just come the first and second quarter of 2022 was negative GDP, which meant that we were in a recession. Yeah. People kept talking about, well, I don't know, we're maybe headed for recession. Well, we were in a recession, but then the third and the fourth quarter came, which by the third it would have snapped that double, right? So I mean, technically by the end of by the end of September, we were technically out of the recession. Mm-hmm. Then we had a really good fourth quarter. Yeah. And so we're going, and so there's things that are interest rates are higher. So again, why is it all the development has slowed? Yeah. I mean, I went to that industrial economic summit here in Utah. The biggest developers, brokers were all there, and all the developers said we're probably going to mothball some of our new projects that we're talking about because of interest rates. Mm-hmm. And the crazy thing is, at the time that they had that was actually where the rates, they started incrementing them up. Mm-hmm. The 10-year Treasury is down by about 1% from where they were talking then. So I think there was a little bit of like fear of where the 10-year Treasury was sitting at, right? Yeah. Even though they hadn't even raised, they'd made many more raises between now and then. Yeah. Interesting. You know what I mean? It's like, and yet it's kind of falling because it's just in a little interesting sweet spot, right? Yeah. Now it's more than double than what was, but it's like it's still historic lows.
I know.
And so
mortgage loans, the interest rates for those they've come down a little bit.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's kind of what and then we find out why were the layoffs. It wasn't because the 10-year, they were making a bigger investment than they were ever going to pay their employees into AI, right?
Exactly.
And it was across, how do we automate this? And, I think Google has the jump because everybody still goes to Google. Yeah. I talked to a lot of people still that are like, no, what is ChatGPT?
Yeah, even like my parents don't really know what it is.
Yeah, same with my
siblings.
And they're like, well, I don't understand it. So if you're really following it right now, or you're in a job that you think you could be replaced because you work at one of these companies, but we know that Microsoft made a huge investment in their own version of their artificial intelligence. They've been really working on that for quite a few years with the assistant program that they've tried
Google
to have.
Assistant.
Well, that was the Google, but Microsoft had their own thing that was they tried to work with Outlook so you could plan and it would automate some things. And I always felt like they were overshooting from everything I heard because I didn't know anybody that was really using it. Yeah. So they'd have the launch of what they were doing and talking about it. But, in that article we talked about with them, I mean, they had, maybe it was one after that, where they'd met with Microsoft. They don't normally come out and meet with the public, right? Yeah. But they were doing that, and they did test some things. It was still amazing, but it made some stuff up. Mm-hmm. They were going to take a road trip from somewhere to somewhere around the country, and where you'd stop and get charging or fuel. They did a couple different ways. It actually made up a city in Connecticut and another area. Just made it up. Said you stop for gas and get it there. Get a charge up. Yeah. So it's like really kind of weird. There's some funky things with AI on that. And
was there no charging station there?
Wasn't even a city.
Oh, it was just like nothing.
It made a city up.
Weird.
And it was kind of like real time when they were actually doing this in front of the. And they're like, see, it's not perfect yet. But if you looked at all the rest of it, it was like a perfect way. But somewhere the charging to where it actually made up a city. It's like, was there a crossover of information, right?
Yeah. Where did it get that from?
Well, on paper, it looked like it was made up because as they looked into it, there wasn't a city in Connecticut. And there was some other thing that was like kind of, it's smart enough to know it fills in the gaps not to look stupid.
Yeah.
It didn't just melt down and say, we can't calculate this thing. It actually was smart enough to say, and like when Joe Biden's up there and he goes, I'll veto bullying if any you know what I mean? It's like, what the hell just said there?
Exactly.
It's like, well, that's what some of these AI things are doing, right? I mean, which is weird to me that it actually, like I said, it's not like we're missing a city that
It doesn't want to look stupid.
It didn't want to look stupid. And you can say whatever you want with that. That to me is some thinking on the back end, right? It's not just using language to do it. When it makes up a city, before you take off for your road trip, you may want to look up. So but there's some other things there. But that's through Bing, right? So Bing, which is supposed to be the equivalent of Google.
See, I didn't even know Bing still really exists.
That's where they dumped all their stuff. That's where Microsoft, they made their investment and said, so what they've done, it's interesting, all their investments going, so Bing technically is like a Chat GPT, where Google's still just their Google response, right?
Really? So if I went to Bing right now, it would be more of like a Chat GPT?
Yeah, if you want to try it out, I mean, maybe we could, edit this or come back to that, but do a real thing. But so if you go to Bing, it's supposed to be more of an integrated Google with a Chat GPT, right? And it's got, some people are like, well, I'm not going to go to Bing. Bing's dead,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, and so I mean.
Write me a poem. Oh yeah, it's like a full-on.
Yeah, so on live TV, so to speak, right? Because they didn't let them edit. It wasn't live, but it was real time, right? So the interview starts now, and they get talking about stuff. Well, they go on, and they're talking with. I mean, they've got like their big wig execs, right? Yeah. It's not like the lackey that's doing it. I mean, I don't know if the people knew how to do it as well as probably the lackey did in there, but I was watching it. It was like something from CBS, Good Morning America type thing, or that's Channel 4 or whatever, the ABC one, but whatever, the equivalent. I think it was CBS. They went and did a couple of these scenarios, and that's when they came and made up the city through Bing, but I guess if you step back from it, right, they're saying, hey, we're not ChatGPT, we're not Google, we're actually the best of both worlds. Like a mix. And
that's interesting.
It is interesting. So Google still says, hey, people are going to keep going to Google. Yeah. Holy shit, what are we going to do to, I mean, I never thought Google could even be, how do you beat Google, right? Yeah. Well, you come up with ChatGPT or AI and you integrate the two of them, which is really interesting because I know Google spent a lot of money on the automation phone lines, that you could, it was several years ago that you could call and interact with what they were showing, like an assistant, right? Yeah. So I could call in like I hired an assistant and have a conversation, and she could ask questions back, and it was pretty good. Yeah. I thought you could still tell it was a machine with like, can you see that? But you could tell it had some thinking that was going on. It was asking questions back that weren't just like, yes, I'll send a text, you know what I mean? Yes, I'll send. Anyway. But obviously they dropped the ball a little bit, at least in there. Now, they've got a lot of resources. They could buy companies, OpenAI, that could. Really interesting stuff, though, right? So
I feel like Bing should try and push that out more, because I hadn't heard of that at all. Yeah. Like, I think people in my generation think Bing is completely dead, because we never even really used it.
So you know what? I would think that too. The only thing with Bing, which was interesting. Bing had a map software, right? It's kind of their Google Maps. Yeah. But you could get pictures of a property, what they call the bird's eye view, right? And it was before. Now you can actually go on to Google, and you can hold down the control thing and use your mouse and lift it up, so you kind of got that, so you're looking down like that versus just straight down, right? It's that 3D version. Uh-huh. But Bing's had that for a while. It's actually, you could get some really almost kind of like drone views. Yeah. So I would go to Bing for that, right? Mm-hmm. But the problem is that they had the technology to do it. But I mean, like 4 years ago, there was a building built here right next to the property I was trying to sell. But you'd go up there, get the bird's eye view, and the building wasn't there. The truck stop wasn't there. Yeah. But it's been operating for 5 or 6 years. It's like, wow, that's weird. You know what I mean? It's like, you got a 3D picture of something that maybe didn't exist, but they were able to alter the camera views to get it. But so I was going to Bing for some of those things. I knew it wasn't totally dead. You know what I mean? But it's like, as soon as I got that information, I wasn't asking it anything else. Yeah. To me, it's kind of like Apple Maps. It's not as good. It's just, you think Apple's made this, it's like, no, it just runs better on Google Maps.
It does, right? Every time.
If I want to get to a place for sure, and I don't want to screw it up, I mean, I've had it plug in, if it doesn't have all the coordinates perfect, You might be going to Spanish Fork, and it might be driving somewhere to go to Saratoga Springs. You know, it's very odd. You know, some of that stuff. You know, so it's all of these technologies. Every one of them ends up enhancing our lives if you know how to use it, right? Yeah. So I think people are scared of this AI for lots of different reasons, and I think it is going to replace jobs, but I can't imagine it doing it at such a rate. Yeah. Because you can only implement it so fast too into a company. So interesting, very interesting.
And something that someone actually commented on our last podcast, I think it was that they didn't think that AI was going to replace as many jobs as we might think, because if it's replacing jobs, then that means that there's less people making the money to put back into the economy, if that makes sense. So AI is not going to be spending the money. Yeah, it's cheaper for businesses to just have a robot do the work that it might take 5 people to do. But having those 5 people is putting that money back into the economy. So that was an interesting thing that I hadn't thought of.
Well, and, you know, there was that other guy that on the AI that responded back. He was a younger guy, and he said, hey, this is the stuff we talk about when we all get high. Me and my friends, right?
Yeah.
He's like, and he said, but we do build a lot of robots. And he said, to build the type of robot you're talking about it's not going to be for a while, right? It's not, it's there, and yeah, we know Boston Dynamics has it, but, you know, it was an interesting point of view, right? Hey, we say, please respond. Yeah. Let us know your thoughts. We're talking about stuff that people are talking about, and we're talking about things that are trying to be a little more cutting edge that we don't all know the answers to, but the reality is, these things are affecting us, and it also will affect the market. I mean, if they're building buildings now, industrial, that are 20 feet taller interior than they used to be, right? I mean, that's a little extreme on the average, but they are, and they've got now forklifts that are non-human operated. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's AI to me, and they've been using that for a while, right? That if they put a human on there, the human would try to go a little too fast. They'd get comfortable. They'd get tired. They actually have magnets in the floor, so they can pass on really tight areas that 2 forklifts, unmanned. Some of them, if it's way, way, way up there, they will have a guy there just so we can hit the red button if something looks like it's going to go to hell, you know. I've known some really good forklift operators, but they've been, you know, because once you factor out any accidents, right, that slow things down or have some problems that could, you know, mess up product, no, they can design these forklifts to go in. It maybe it's not as fast overall, but by the end of the day, after the guy didn't take his break, you don't have to stop them. It's still pulling product, taking it out, searching, you know. So the computer's doing it. We've been using it at a lot of levels, I think. Is when I see the floor of any of these auto makers, I mean, all that, you know, those huge arms, and they're welding and moving and picking entire things up, and that's, people would die, you know, even looking at that 20, 30 years ago, right? You know, what we could actually do with it. So I think that's the rate. Now, ChatGPT is a breakthrough, no doubt about it. I mean, to look at it, and again, to me, I don't throw my arms in the air and say, that's so stupid, it picking up a city. To me, that's what makes me a little nervous, because I'm like,
it made up a city.
It didn't want to look stupid, or, hey, we figured it out, we'll get you up there. And I don't know if it actually took the thought to say, you know what, if you're in this area, you're going to find a charging station. We're going to show you how to keep going up to Boston. It was something like going from New York City to Boston is what they were, and the preferred route, so that you could, I think it was an electric vehicle, you could charge it, not just gas station. It was a charging station that you had to hit, and it made up a city in Connecticut. Wild, right? So any of you could probably do a little Google search or a Bing search. Maybe Bing won't let it come up. Maybe theirs is like, nope, we don't have that in our system. You know, you've got to go to Google. But it is interesting. Really interesting stuff. So Utah's not the only one. We know Arizona. We know Austin, Texas. Those are good paying jobs. A couple Texans came back and said, after we thought that was a growing area, that, if you wanted just a minimum wage job, there's lots of them in Texas, which there probably is, and they probably do know what they're talking about. You guys live there, and so we appreciate any feedback we can get. But at the end of the day, there's some really exciting stuff happening on that. So that's the end of it. I mean, we can maybe talk a little more. Do you want to do or say, we really appreciate you watching. These are interesting things. Hopefully we're presenting it and having a discussion that is interesting to you as well. But at the end of the day, we appreciate you watching. Like, subscribe. We're building our subscription up. We've got some interviews that we're planned for next week, that some local businessmen that had some international companies, and we're excited about it. Stay tuned. Thank you very much.